Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Roll the Credits, the podcast, the only podcast that looks like shit and sounds like shit
and feels like shit.
I'm Frank.
I'm Zach.
And today we are talking about. So IMDb says it's 2022 release.
Okay.
I guess that's probably like when it was in. In
the other theaters
in whatnot,
like the mini theaters,
yeah,
the indie stuff.
Exactly. So we're talking about 2022's Skinamarink.
Yep.
Written and directed by a guy named Kyle Edward Ball. Stars Lucas Paul, who plays Kevin. Dolly Rose. I'm going to just butcher your last name. I'm so sorry, Dolly. But your last name, I think, is Tretrelu. I don't know.
Tretrelu.
She plays Kaylee. You have Ross Paul, who plays the father, and then Jamie Hill, who plays the mother.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a movie
about nothing.
Well,
kind of.
This is a movie about two children who wake up in the middle of the night to find their father is missing and all of the doors and windows have disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So you saw this. This was a movie that I was really into.
Yes.
Like, I was really into the idea of it and really experimental, and I told you about it, and then you were like, that sounds cool. And then I think you watched it first.
I found out about this movie.
Okay. Well, I saw it. I saw like the trailer in a movie theater.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, this seems really like obscure and interesting and weird.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to see it. And then I didn't see it in theaters.
I saw it in theaters.
I ended up seeing The Whale in theaters.
I still want to watch that.
The Whale's good. But I ended up watching this because it came to Shudder. By the way, Shudder. I don't want to say anything bad because like you could potentially be a sponsor at some point, but like you got to fix your app. Your app was just like dog shit for me. I had the hardest time. Like I was in this endless loop of being a subscriber, but then not being able to view anything because it told me that I wasn't a subscriber. But then when I would click on it, it would say you're already a subscriber.
Oh my God.
It was like this endless loop. It took me like 45 minutes to be able to actually sit down and watch this movie.
I have Shudder through Amazon Prime, so like I just literally go onto Amazon Prime and then everything shows up on there.
Well, I went through the actual Shudder, and it was just shit. But we got here, and I watched it, and you did not spoil my experience, thankfully.
You're welcome.
And
I knew too. I knew it was either going to be like
I hate it or I love it.
It's one or the other. Like as soon as you watched it, I was like, if he doesn't say he wants to do it for the podcast, he hated it. That's immediately how I thought about it.
Listen. So this is like one of those movies, and I don't know exactly how true this really is. This is like I try to stay away from a lot of the dialogue.
It's a true story.
I try to stay away from a lot of the dialogue that happens on the internet prior to recording this podcast. I like to come up with my own thoughts, my own theories, and everything beforehand, and then once we record, I can go, and then I'll go and kind of like see like what the people are saying about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what this movie is rated on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know what it is, what the general consensus is. The only thing that I have seen, and I don't know if this was just marketing blurb or what, but is, people are saying that this is the scariest movie that I've ever seen.
I've seen many of things where it's so weird. Like I have not seen a movie this divided in a long time where people either say it's the most boring dog shit I've ever seen, or it's like the greatest horror movie since like The Shining.
Yeah. And I kind of fall somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is in the middle. This is a movie that is not for everyone.
We say that movie, we say that a lot on this podcast because we tend to do some like strange films sometimes. That statement has never been more true
exactly than
for this movie. Like
yes.
This movie is absolutely not going to be for everyone, and I love that about it. I love how different and weird and strange this movie is, and how not conformative it is.
Yes, it is something so different, and I know like in the. Like 2 episodes ago, we talked about like the short films, and I talked about the short film Heck.
Yeah,
that
which,
was, like,
by the way,
did you watch it?
I didn't watch Heck, but I watched The Other Side of the Box.
Oh, did you love it?
twice.
Yeah, it's great,
It's really
right?
good. Yeah, it's pretty good. The writing on it was a little in the
Yes.
beginning, but overall, I was like, this is pretty good.
Yeah, like it's one of those ones where it's like this is like a proper short film.
Yeah, it was really cool.
But yeah, like Heck, like
Did you watch Heck?
I did. Heck was the thing where it's like, so the first viewing, because I've watched this movie twice now.
Skinamarink.
Yes. I've watched Skinamarink twice now. The first time around, I really wish I saw this in theaters because I think I would have had like a different experience.
Yeah.
The first time around, I was just like dead tired. I watched like I worked that morning from like 4:30 to 12. I watched it at like 8 p.m. when I was like fucking like about to fall asleep. And like the jump scares are what kind of like kept me awake.
And there's not that many.
No. So I was a little passed out for some of it. And then same thing, like watching it this time, I was a little tired and I was like, oh my God. Like it's and I don't know if that's literally because like 90% of the movie is just like still shots.
Yeah.
Where it's like I just couldn't get like captivated for like some of it. So I wish I could have seen that like in the theaters to see if it was like a different experience. But after I watched the first time, I was like, man, this felt like it was like 4 hours long. And I had heard that like, oh, originally there was like the short film Heck, which was basically the same film but kind of like condensed down.
Right.
It's kind of the same idea, not really. It does like something a little bit differently, and I don't want to spoil that if you do want to check out Heck at some point, because that's just free on YouTube for anybody to watch. But I was kind of like going into that mindset of like, oh, I'm going to like Heck more than Skinamarink. And no, I like Skinamarink way more.
Oh, okay.
Heck is good. It gets that point across, but like there's something about this film that's like a little bit more refined.
Yeah.
That like I just really enjoyed that more.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I pretty much I knew very little about the movie. I pretty much knew what the synopsis was.
Yes.
Was that these kids wake up and
I
they're
think that's what everybody knew
Yeah.
going into this.
and I knew that there wasn't a lot of dialogue. I knew that it was very experimental and very different, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna just give myself to it. I don't think that. I think if you went down in the mindset of like, hey, I'm gonna watch a horror movie,
Yeah, not
and
for
then
you.
you just put this on,
Nope.
you would have a really bad experience.
Mhm.
But I think knowing a little bit, knowing that it's not dialogue driven, it's very much really just underexposed, super grainy, a lot of still shots. You never really get a great look at any of the characters. It's a lot of just them walking around with their toes and their feet, and you see them from like the ankle or the back of their head or whatever. And the dialogue, the sparse amount of dialogue that you do have in the film is like really spaced out.
Yes.
So there's no like real serious cohesion. Knowing all of that going in, I think it's a bit more enjoyable.
Yes.
Because again, it was late at night when I watched this movie. I wasn't tired or anything, so I was like ready for this movie. But I, killed all the lights, put on my surround sound, and gave myself to it.
And you really got to kill the lights for this one.
Yeah, and this movie really kind of puts you in a weird sort of like meditative state, similar to like what 2001: A Space Odyssey does.
Yeah.
Very
Like,
different films, obviously,
but like that last half hour.
just and like I mean, yeah, I guess so. And like just so much of that movie of Skinamarink is just like this deep sort of like immersion and like this more like cerebral experience than like a traditional film would be.
Yes.
And for that, I respect it. I think Edward or Kyle, excuse me, he has 3 names. I think Kyle just I can appreciate when a filmmaker does something and they make something that they absolutely intended to make.
Yes, and I think that is what's great about this is that like this was literally like something different, out there, out of the box, complete full control, and he just made exactly what he wanted to do with it.
Yeah, you can tell that there was probably no real studio. I mean, I did a little bit of research on the movie was made for $15,000.
Yeah.
Made like $2 million back. So like very successful for a $15,000 budget.
Yeah, and you got to kind of think now at this point where it's like whether you like the movie or not, whether you've seen the movie or not, you have to kind of like think that this movie may very well be a catalyst for like very out there films.
Yeah. because a lot of these, a lot of guys, a lot of people, a lot of the suits that are just running these production companies, they don't even watch the movies. They just look at the numbers.
Yeah.
He made this movie for $15,000. He made $2 million back. Great. Let's let him make another movie. And then all of a sudden, a year later, they're watching like a rough cut of the movie, and they're like, "What the fuck is this?"
They're like, "Nope, just make Terminator 6 instead."
Yeah. So yeah, I absolutely just want to like tip my hat to Kyle for making a movie that he absolutely intended to make, and that was obviously knowing that it wasn't going to be for everybody. Obviously knowing that, I don't think that he was anticipating this movie to probably make $2 million.
No, I think this was literally just kind of like a love letter where it's like they said in the beginning to like one of his friends that had passed away.
Yeah.
I think this was just literally like something that him and his friend like worked on, and like he just wanted to make like this love letter film.
Yeah, it's a passion project.
Exactly.
And I think it's a really interesting, and I do think, listen, I know that people say that this movie, like you even said it, like it's about nothing. I do think that there is a plot.
There is,
and like there's something that I took away from it, and I kind of want to hear like what you have to say first.
Okay.
About the plot, but before we get into like the plot of kind of like what we think the whole movie's about, let's talk about the film and like the experience of it.
Yes.
So I really liked the amount of grain and like film, like really kind of shitty film quality of this movie, because the amount of grain, like the oversaturation of the grain did something, at least for me and my viewing experience, that I don't know if you also felt, but like I was getting these moments of there's so much grain on the film that it starts to like become this like your eyes kind of get like mesmerized by it, and then you start like seeing things moving like within the grain, and it sort of looks like, oh, is there a shape there? Is that a face? Is that not a face? And that is kind of interesting and cool, because that's kind of like where the horror in this movie, I think, is at its best.
This movie is so fucking eerie from nothing.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that idea where it's like, again, like I have to assume that this film was shot on film.
I don't know if it was,
and
because
if it wasn't, then it looks way too fucking much like film.
I think it had to be shot digitally, because I can't imagine what a $15,000 budget, paying your actors, lighting guys, editing, like I mean, unless he did it all, like having an audio guy, like I don't know, man, like putting a budget for film as well, like actually shooting on film seems like. I don't know if it's possible. But it looks like film.
I love the fact that this film looks like it's 80s like home movies.
Yeah, like 16 millimeter, like just dog shit.
Exactly. And like I don't know if you know like this concept called like the back rooms.
I don't think so. Explain it.
There is like this conspiracy theory type thing where it's like there's something out there called like the back rooms, and what it is that like there's like two parts to it. There's like this idea that like you could clip through reality at any point and end up there, and it's like it's literally just like empty rooms, like dull lighting, like weird stuff, like things that are like familiar to you but feel off.
Okay.
Like think of like midnight, a dimly lit diner with nobody in it but one person, and you can't see them out. Like there's familiarity to it, but it's eerie. Like something feels off. And then there's this idea of like the back rooms where it's like in those areas there are like if you make too much noise, or like they become aware, like there are these creatures that come and try and kill you, basically. And at any point you can clip back into the world, and you could do something where it's like you could fall from like 15,000 feet, or you could be in like the ocean.
Right, yeah.
That's like, I don't know. I haven't done like a bunch of research on it, but like it kind of seems like a Matrix-esque kind of conspiracy thing to it. But the main point of it is this eeriness with things that are familiar. And I don't know if that was the intention, but this movie is that. Like this feels so eerie when like nothing is there.
Yeah.
Like the idea of like these comforting things like the fucking the phone toy, which I had as a kid, so that like fucked with me a little bit. And then these like the Mega Blocks, the cheap knockoffs to Legos.
Yeah, yeah.
Where it's like
I also had those.
yeah, exactly. Me too. So it's like again, like these weird things that like are placed there to make you feel safe, but then it turns into like something creepy.
Yeah.
And I had that same experience where it's like because of that, you're looking at like these still images, these slow pans of the camera, and then just being locked on like a wall for like 5 minutes. And it's like, again, you get that kind of thing where it's like how you said, like, I'm starting to see shit in the shadow.
Yeah.
Like, I'm starting to wonder, is there something looking back at me?
Right.
And that I really enjoy as a horror
that's
film.
what makes this movie, I think, work because especially it's a period piece. It takes place in 1995.
Exactly. Which is crazy because, like, I was born in 1994, so, like...
Yeah, and I was born in 95. And I do think that if you were kind of born around this time and you maybe were a child in the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
like this movie might kind of resonate with you a bit more than anybody else because this movie feels like the 90s and it feels like it just I don't know, it just made it like a little bit more relatable.
Yes,
for
like
me.
Yeah, like the cartoon, the wood paneling, like behind, like it, like the way that the house is set up, like the carpet going upstairs.
Yeah.
Big thing in the 90s for whatever reason. I'm sure people still have it, but like it was just so relevant back then.
Yeah.
So it's like it's this familiarity, but again, like something feels off.
Right, and I think that that's why this movie worked for me was because this movie, like, it feels like a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it feels like a nightmare that I may have had as a kid.
Oh, yeah. Especially, too, when you get to, like, the last, like, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's just these weird images where you're like, oh, my God, I felt this before.
Yeah. And, you know, if I had one complaint about this movie, because I don't have many. I mean, yes, it's slow.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that it's slow is an understatement.
Yeah.
It is.
We've done slow movies.
This is fucking slow.
And that's what I mean by, like, I'm struggling to stay awake when I watch this.
Yeah, you cannot watch this movie when you're tired.
Mm-mm.
But I lost my train of thought. It's just gone forever. Well, oh no. The one complaint that I do have about this movie is I wish that he leaned into that element that we were talking about, the grain, the something is watching you.
Yeah.
I wish it stayed quiet the entire film. I did not love the telephone scene where it was like the eyes and the face, and then like you get like that loud screech of like music, and then it goes back to normal. Like that felt like a cheap scare to me.
See, yeah, that's weird because like for me, like this was the one movie exception that I have to jump scares. Like the fact that the film is so quiet throughout all of it, and it's like, oh, the ringing of like the phone, or like when we get that crazy scene with Kaylee in the basement.
Yeah.
Or like the bones snapping.
Yeah.
And like right beforehand. It's like those scenes I feel like it's well deserved to have like a jump scare because like the film is so quiet that like making any noise is going to scare me because like it's so quiet. So like
see,
I don't
and like
mind
for that reason it feels cheap to me.
Yeah. Like I don't mind it for that. I don't know
that's
why.
That's fine. It's two different opinions and that's great. Like for me the thing that really freaked me out was like the last shot of the
my
face.
God.
And
I had to turn it off.
Really?
I had to like the first time like I had to turn it off because like it's just literally like 4 minutes of it staring at you and being like, "What's your name?"
And I literally think that it's just like a styrofoam head.
Oh yeah,
like it's
100%.
Just, that's all it is.
It like pops into the frame so grainy that like you just barely make it out, and then it like just as quickly it disappears.
Yeah, that really got under my skin. The murder of I believe it was Kaylee, and like
Yep.
the blood on the hallway that's upside down, and like the blood is splattering and then disappearing and then coming back and then disappearing, and then like you hear her screaming.
Yeah, and like the taking of her mouth got me.
Yeah. But like that element of the blood and all of that, like that one really got me. Like where again, it's not like a jump scare, but it's the idea of like what's happening to her and the idea of, I mean, the creature, the demon, whatever you want to call it, the entity of this movie, literally, it's pretty much like a god of sorts. Like it literally says that I can do anything I want. So the idea, like the idea of torturing Kaylee and like killing her, and then like and then kind of like undoing it, and then doing it again, and then undoing it, and then doing it again, and the idea of him just being able to endlessly torture her forever.
Yeah.
Like that bothered me.
Yeah, like that, and like taking away the doors and windows, and like the scene where it's like the mom just literally fades out. It's like he can just do this.
I think that was Kaylee.
No, that was the mom.
When you're watching her at the edge of the bed, and then she like slowly gets taken.
Yeah,
that's Kaylee.
I'm pretty sure that's the mom.
That's Kaylee, and I have a whole theory about it.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure that that's Kaylee, because that's when Kaylee's like killed and like gone.
See, in my opinion, it was like, what is it? I thought Kevin went down into the basement, because the thing says for Kevin to go into the basement, and then you see like lying on the floor is a body.
Yeah.
And then I assume that that's Kaylee like rising up for a second, and like she has no mouth and her eyes are gone.
Yeah, that is Kaylee.
Yeah.
That is Kaylee with no eyes and no mouth. But like when we get to that scene where she's sitting at the edge of the bed, I'm pretty sure that's Kaylee. I don't know.
Maybe.
The movie's shot like it's so grainy
so
and whatever that you don't
ambiguous.
really know. The only reason why I said it was the only reason why immediately I jumped to Kaylee was because the mom is only in like one scene in this movie, so like it just made sense to me that like she's pretty much there for one scene and then disappears, and then she's gone. So it made sense to me that it would be one of the two children and not the mom. So yeah, I mean, this movie is. I think that this movie has a way of getting under your skin. I think that this movie is very, very tedious to a point, because I do think that there's a little too much.
Yeah, like if this was like an hour and 15 minutes long, I think like most people would be able to digest it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Hour and 40 minutes, pushing it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I do start feeling the runtime a bit of, okay, I'm looking at the hallway. Okay, I'm looking at a thing. And like, again, to each their own. Somebody might love it and like they love everything about it. For me personally, it did start getting a little tiresome, but the ending simultaneously like felt like it all made it feel worth it at the same time, ironically. And like this movie sort of fizzles out into this movie like doesn't really ever like
reach
peak.
it
kind of just stays here, and like there's like these little blips, and then it kind of just burns out like a candle. But ironically, that's kind of what made it freakier.
Yeah, because like there is like, I get what you mean, because it almost feels like in any other circumstance there would be like this conflict where it's like, okay, like we need to like stop it, or we need to like do something. And because like everything is so constant and like this is just like what they live in now.
Yeah.
It's like that's scarier, because it's like there's nothing, like there's no point in doing anything because this is just what you have.
Right. And like we end up learning towards like the later half of the film that they're no longer in reality.
Oh no.
They are no longer this is not a haunted house situation. This is a
different dimension.
Yeah, exactly. And you're gone, and it's such a great scene of that hallway shot that keeps coming back further and further and further, and then just goes on to infinity, and then we get the shot of the house in the middle of nowhere with like just a blue light on it and like covered in smoke, and it's just you're in the upside down. You're nowhere. Like,
you're in the back rooms.
You're just gone, and you're in like this entity's dimension essentially, and he's just playing with you like a toy. Like it's like a toy house. It's like a dollhouse. I love that.
Yeah,
I thought that was really great.
I think this movie does, besides the fact that like again, like how we said, like this movie feels long for like an hour and 40 minutes. But I can't knock it for the fact that like this film is so good at building this tension. Like there is this, like the first time that I watched this, there is from the minute that it starts until like the very end of this constant tension of me where it's like I feel like my bones are going to rip out of my skin half the time.
Yeah.
Because like you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting for something to happen, and like 9 times out of 10 nothing happens. And that's scarier sometimes, where it's like I'm just like I didn't get that release of like, fuck, there it is. And then it's like, okay, now I just have to fucking keep living with this tension.
Yeah.
I will say too, like the one thing I wish we could have gotten something when like Kaylee goes upstairs and the dad is like, look under the bed. Like, had we gotten anything, because she looks underneath twice. So it's like,
yeah.
so it's like the first time, okay, I'm kind of expecting like nothing. The second time, I'm kind of expecting something.
Yeah.
Like even if I see feet run across,
yeah.
something. A little disappointed. A little bit of blue balls for that one.
Yeah, but when you do pop up, you end up the mom ends up being there,
and then you get the bone crunching. So it's like you do kind of get it. You just weren't getting it the way that you thought.
Yeah. So let's talk about the plot.
Mm-hmm.
It's loose. It's
very ambiguous.
It's there. It's not there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just kind of lay my cards out on the table and just like tell you sort of like everything that I took away from the movie and what I kind of what I think it's about. I think this movie's about divorce. I think this movie is about children dealing with divorce and their parents, and I think it's about absentee parents, and I think it's about absentee an absent father, a mother that wasn't a very good mother, and kids sort of like trying to understand what the hell's going on and them feeling completely lost and misguided because they don't have a family, they don't have a father or a mother figure to like look up to.
Yeah.
And I know that might be a bit of a reach because there's really nothing in this, like there's the plot is so loose and so thin that feels very dense for me to say. Like when you kind of have nothing.
Yeah. You're building something off of it.
But I do think that there are like building blocks for that, right? So in the beginning of the movie, the father is there. He's around. Kevin falls down the stairs and hurts his head.
Yeah.
And ends up getting brought back by the father, and then you hear like the father on the phone with the mom, assuming it's the mom. You don't really get it clear, but it seems like it's the mother, and he's basically like, no, he didn't need any stitches, and blah, blah, blah. And then the father disappears.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels like to me the mother is gone. They're out of the life, right? Like when you kind of what you were talking about in that scene where she looks under the bed and then looks under the bed again, and then you see the mom, and pretty much the only thing the mom says is that your father and I love you very much.
Yes.
And like that feels like something that a parent would say. I am a child of divorce. And like I never had that personally. Like nobody ever said that to me, but that is like a thing that seems like a bit of a trope of what's said to children. Like, hey, yeah, we're not working out, but like that, don't think that, that makes us love you any less. Like we love you so much. Right. So for her only lines in the film to pretty much be that. And for the way that Kaylee sort of talks about their mom, where she's like, where Kevin's like mentions the mom and Kaylee's like, I don't want to talk about mom. Like, let's not talk about her. I think that she was like a very neglectful, not their mother. And, they just don't have a good relationship with her, and then she like walked out. Now the father is responsible for them, right? But he's probably away at work all the time doing things, so they feel like they don't really have a father figure. But he's there like when they really truly like needed her, right? Like Kevin falls down the stairs, he's gonna take her to the hospital, right? Like he's gonna be there, but then after we figure out everything's okay, he disappears again, and like that's kind of where I think that what this movie is kind of about. And like this weird sort of family trauma and these kids trying to like rationalize it. Now, I do think that there's another element of it. I don't think that like the demon and stuff is part of that, but I think that is them. And then I think that this demon thing is like seeing that they're weak. Yeah. Seeing children, because like that's kind of like a typical thing that happens, right? It's like, oh, the demon goes after the weak ones. So he like sees that they're weak and sort of just like makes them relive all of these moments to keep them weak, so that he can eventually take them.
Yeah.
That's what I pulled from it, and I have no idea if like anybody else is saying this. I have no idea what's going on in the conversation about this movie. But watching this movie one time, that's what I took away from it.
It's funny. You're not that far off from what I was thinking.
Okay.
So I like that idea though of like the idea that it is divorce. I leaned more into the idea that like it's actually parental abuse.
Okay.
So I leaned into the fact that like, you know, there's kind of like this unsaid idea that like maybe the dad wasn't the dad actually pushed Kevin down the stairs. So there is a point where it's like in the beginning of the film where Kevin is like sitting at the top of the steps and he says, "Are you hiding?" So it's like there's somebody there, and then immediately afterwards he falls down the steps. There's the idea too that like the entity in this film is a metaphor for parental abuse, being that like even in your own home you don't feel safe, because like you're supposed to feel safe with like, again, these familiarities of like the toys and the cartoons and like stuff like that, like sleeping downstairs at night, like just stuff like that, where then you have something coming after you and you're supposed to feel safe in your house, but there's something that's there like making you go downstairs and like you hear bones cracking. And that again brings it back to the thing of like, you know, when Kaylee goes upstairs and it's like the mom is there and she says like, "Your father and I love you very much." It could be also too where it's like she's being like, the mom is being abused and she has no way of like basically stopping this. Like she just has to let the kids know is like, "We love you. I don't know how to stop this abuse from happening to you, but we love you very much." That idea. And then again too where it's like the kids going downstairs and being like, can we sleep down here tonight? Can we feel safe down here?
Right.
Where it's like you have the TV, you have your toys, so it's like you have these things to like mentally block you from it.
Yeah.
And then the idea too of like the doors and windows disappearing because you can't escape this.
Yeah, and I think that comes back with like the cartoons that they watch.
Yeah.
The cartoons of like the character opening the doors and then it's just like an endless thing of doors and you're just like going nowhere.
Yeah, or the rabbit like just shrinking itself like on a loop.
Yeah.
Just to disappear.
Yeah, exactly. It's for a film that doesn't have a plot.
It's got a lot going.
It's got a lot going on,
Yeah.
like ironically enough.
There's also, I did look up, there is like this theory too that like when Kevin fell, he is in a coma. And that's why like when you get that crazy like hallway shot and it says 572 days, it's supposed to be that's how many days.
He's been in a coma for that?
Yeah.
So like this is all like a memory of his, essentially?
That, like all of this is just him being in a coma. Or it could be that like he's gotten out of the coma, but like, again, that idea that like demons, entities, whatever, can connect to you when you're weak. So it's like him being in a coma, he brought this home with him.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
that's kind of
572 days. That's the only thing that I can kind of like be like either that or like that's how long they've been stuck in here.
Well, yeah, that's what I thought it was. I immediately thought it was that 572 days. Like the movie is showing you, or it's kind of like making you believe that this is like happening over the course of like a day or two, maybe 3 days, and then you get that shot of 572 days where it's like, no, time just doesn't move as you think it moves.
Yeah.
It's not linear, and you know they've been doing this forever, and this is endless, and whatever realm that they're in is just completely out of our understanding of how things work.
Yeah, and I kind of like that a little bit better, especially too after seeing Heck, where it's like it starts off kind of like that, where it's like 1 sleep, and then it's like 3 sleep, and it's like 5 sleep, and then it's like 6 sleep, and then it jumps to like 642 sleeps. But it's like every scene there's like it's a different sleep, but it's like it feels like it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
So it starts to feel like you've been here for like infinity.
Yeah.
But like it just feels like it's a night.
Yeah.
So I do like that a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. This movie just feels like a nightmare to me.
Yeah,
it feels like because
and that's
like,
where it can get you.
Yeah, and like and it works on that level because it's like when you're sleeping, you kind of just lose all control of time, right? Like when you sleep, you're kind of you fall asleep and then you just wake up, and you have no recollection of that 8 to 10 hours or however long you're sleeping for, right? They're gone, and now you're awake again, and now it's the next day. So I don't know. I really don't know. It's bizarre. It's strange. It's interesting. It's unique. All I want to say is that I just respect the shit out of this movie being so different and being so weird and kind of like firmly planting its feet in the ground as this is what I am and I'm not wavering from it. And it just makes you feel like there's no excuse to not make a movie if you want to make a movie.
Exactly. And same thing. Like, I really respect this film. Like, I think it is something like completely different and out there, and like, yes, it's not made for everybody, but that's the point. Like, this is something that he wanted to make, that he was passionate about, that he had this idea. And I think it's so, if nothing else, you can say that this is a very unique film.
Yeah.
That like it will be remembered for its uniqueness.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely think that this is like, I know it's only March as of the recording, but like, man, like very high up there for the year of films to come out.
Yeah, it's one of the most unique experiences, one of the most unique cinematic experiences you're probably going to have.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. I would give it like an 8 out of 10 for me personally.
I think like an 8 dolls on the ceiling out of 10.
Yeah, it was really good. And I'm really excited to see what he's going to do next. It's definitely going to be a filmmaker that I'm keeping an eye on. I did watch one interview with him, and I did find out that he actually shot this movie in his childhood home.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, so again, adding that layer of fear.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think you should check out Heck.
I'm going to, for sure. Okay. I have a recommendation. Frank has been picking up new hobbies.
Berry picking.
Those are fun. That's fun. Have you ever done that? It's actually really.
What do you mean berry picking? No.
It's really nice.
I've done apple picking.
I've done berry picking. You go out and they get raspberries and blueberries and stuff. It's really nice.
It's very tedious.
It is. It's not for everybody. I recommend berry picking.
You get a basket or like?
Yeah.
What do you? Okay.
Yeah. Take them home, wash them off, eat them, put them in a pie. It's great. No. So I've been like nonstop, like go.
Yeah.
And I'm finding myself that I'm not really like doing things for enjoyment right now. I'm like doing things
because you have to,
for like an end result. I'm working, right? I'm editing, I'm taking pictures, I'm doing video, I'm running social media accounts, whatever I'm doing. And it's always like for an end goal. But for like the past 2 weeks or so, I've had on the brain, like, I really want to start painting. And yesterday I went out and I purchased like very basic painting things, some acrylic paint, some canvas, some brushes.
I wish you would have told me. I have like a bunch of stuff still from art school.
Oh, well, we'll have a discussion after this. So I have all this stuff now, and I started painting, and I'm not doing it for anything other than like leisure time. I'm doing it like, hey, I have 15, 20 minutes to myself. Let me put on some music and just paint.
Yeah.
And I'm not good. Not claiming to be good.
I hated painting in college.
But I'm also not painting like, I'm not trying to paint like a figure or something. I'm not painting like murals or anything. I'm just putting paint on canvas with colors that I like, creating like different gradients and stuff.
Yeah, you're trying to recreate Kronos eating the gods.
Yeah. So very, very, very light detail.
The likeness is uncanny.
But yeah, I don't know. I started painting, and I will have to say that I'm finding it very relaxing and very enjoyable. Again, I'm just like throwing on some tunes, and I'm just not thinking about anything but the paint. And it's really, really nice. So I would recommend, and I'm not going to maybe not painting is for everybody, but I guess the recommendation is to like find something that you just enjoy doing that's just for the pure enjoyment of doing it, and not because you're trying to like be great at it, or you're trying to like be the next best person at this, or you're going there with like an end goal in mind. Like, just do it to do it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Your recommendations lately have been very like tranquil things of like painting, taking up plants.
Yeah. I'm becoming a hippie.
I'll see it when you start growing out your hair. You got the beard, just grow out the hair.
Yeah. Yeah. So that being said,
Mm-hmm. What are we
um,
doing next?
I guess it is my pick because technically it's my pick. But since it's my pick and we just did 2 movies, like full blown films,
Mm-hmm.
you said you want to start doing short films.
Okay.
So we're gonna start doing short films.
Okay.
At least for this first one. And although this is a short film, there's a lot to talk about. I
Mhm.
think you've seen this, but I'm excited to talk about Ari Aster's Something Strange About the Johnsons.
I think we did it.
Did we?
I think so.
Oh, we did do it. Wait a minute. Everything just.
Oh, fucked up everything for you.
All right, we're going to do The Godfather.
Oh my God, seriously? Oh God.
No, we don't have to do The
So
Godfather. Please hold. Hi, we're back. Okay. So that was my mistake. Totally forgot that we did that. I think we did that a while ago, though.
Yeah,
that
it
must
was
have been
2 years ago. I
yeah.
think.
So just totally, and plus we were just discussing that we switched over to a new RSS feed, new podcast thing. So technically we don't have that on this one, but just to be consistent, we won't do it. What we are going to do is something that can. So we kind of started this this podcast playlist thing of the start,
Yeah.
going back to filmmakers' first feature film,
Mhm.
and seeing what they did, how they did it, and then kind of saying, okay, what's the overarching progression of them to their movies now. But I will commit to a short film. I did watch it. It's on YouTube. And it's really interesting, and it is cool. So this is going to be a mix of a short film and also the start.
Gotcha.
We're going to do Paul Thomas Anderson's Cigarettes and Coffee.
Nice. Okay.
That it was shot on tape, so
Ooh,
because it was just cheaper to do, and he was just he fucking dropped out of film school to make this. So it looks like shit because it's literally tape. But it is really cool to see young Paul Thomas Anderson doing something and seeing wow, from the beginning this guy had something to say, and he was destined to be a great filmmaker.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do Cigarettes and Coffee by Paul Thomas Anderson. You can watch it for free on YouTube.
2 of my favorite things.
Yes. So look forward to that. Zach, take us out.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Now, Frank, can we watch something happy now?